So hey, we had a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of downed trees, but you know what else we had over the last couple of days? Flooded basements. There's a lot of confusion going on as to how a lot of this flooding happens in our houses. So with all my years of experience, let me break it down and let me try to explain it to you in basic terms so that we can all understand it. Hang tight. Hey everyone, Brandon Schuppe at Skydan Real Estate Sales. Hope all's going well. So yeah, a couple of days ago we had a lot of rain. I was at my office and I mean, it came down. Our parking lot flooded. The water was halfway up the tires. But I also then started getting phone calls from past clients, people that I knew, saying, hey, my basement is getting water, what do I do? And I started noticing that there were a lot of people on Facebook that were also making posts about their basements flooding and how this all happened. So I just figured I'd take a minute and do a quick little video and just kind of explain things in basic terms, hopefully to maybe help people out, okay? So first of all, when you go back to some of the older neighborhoods, like if you go back to Berwyn and Cicero, Brookfield, Lyons has some of the older houses. These are suburbs outside of Chicago. A lot of these houses have sewers on their basement floor, okay? The design for that, obviously, is for any water that you get would go down that drain and it goes out to the streets, which means it goes out to the city sewers, okay? And that's the way that is designed. The problem is all of the sewers that you see on the side of the streets when it rains heavy, all of that rainwater goes into the same sewer system. So it's what they call, it's an all-in-one system, okay? So all of the rainwater on the streets, all of your sewage, any drainage in your house, when you flush your toilet, when you run your sink, all of that drains down through your system and out into the city street sewer system, okay? All in one system. And the reason why a lot of these older homes flood with this all-in-one sewer system is because when the city sewers get overloaded with all of this rainwater, the water has no place to go except it starts backing up into people's houses. And it comes right up through that same sewer that's on your basement floor. And there's times that if you've got like even a toilet in your basement and the water level is getting that high, the water can actually start spewing up through your toilet, unfortunately. And it's a mess. So it's not just rainwater that's backing back up into your house, but it's actual sewage, okay? It's sewage from people's toilets, because remember, everything flows out to that city sewer. So everything that's flowing back up into your house is all coming from that city sewer, and it's disgusting. So if you ever have that problem, the first thing you need to do is you need to clean the basement. You need to sanitize everything, okay? Now, there are some houses where our grandparents years ago, the way that they fought against this flooding was they would put a standpipe in the sewer, okay? They would attach a little gadget onto the sewer and their basement floor, and they would literally screw a pipe into that. Now what would happen is then when the water then goes up through the city, from the city sewers, instead of coming up through the sewer, it actually fills up this standpipe. So a lot of times you might see a basement that's got a standpipe that, I don't know, maybe about 4 feet tall, because the water would really never come up higher than that. But instead of flooding your basement, the water would just come up and fill that standpipe, and then when the water level would go back down, then it would stop. There's also another myth that when the streets start flooding, and I got this from a guy that used to work in the water department. He says, don't go running out there right away and start pulling the weeds away from the city sewers that are clogging up the sewers on the side of the road. Don't rush out to do that right away, because once you do that, you're now, again, filling up those city sewers, which is going to cause more backup into people's houses. Let the city sewer system alleviate itself and flow out, and don't rush out right away to unclog the drains, because we'd rather have flooding in the streets than we would want to have flooding in our basement, okay? How do we stop this? The way that you stop it is you contact a plumber, and they can go out in your front yard and they can install a flood control system. So they actually dig into your ground, they put a gadget in between your drain pipe, okay? And what it does is it allows water to flow out to the city sewer, but there's a flapper door on there that doesn't allow water to come back into the house. So if you have an old house and you've got a floor drain and you're getting flooding, okay, and you've got an old system, call the city, call the village, and confirm that you've got an all-in-one system. And in most cases, these towns and villages, that's what you have. The way to alleviate it is, it's going to cost you some money, but you know what? It's also going to cost you money to have to remodel your basement, because in many cases, this is not covered by what we think is flood insurance through our insurance company, okay? I found that out the hard way when my wife and I owned a house years ago and our basement completely flooded and I lost everything, okay? Flood insurance does not cover when water comes up through your sewer. Now, another way that you can get water in the basement is that you may have cracks in the foundation. And what happens is the soil around your house gets so heavily penetrated with water that the water has no place to go, but it starts seeping in through the cracks that are in your foundation. This is something totally different than your sewer system backing up, okay? Now, a lot of the newer homes in some of the newer neighborhoods, they have a two-tier system. And basically what that means is they have a sewer system for waste, so like when you flush your toilet and things like that, your sink, and then they also have another separate system for rainwater. So again, sometimes you see houses that have downspouts outside that go into the ground, okay? Some towns won't allow you to tap your downspouts into and drain into the ground. The reason being is because that water all goes out to the city sewer system versus just going out onto your lawn and then saturating into the ground. But a lot of the newer neighborhoods will have a two-tiered system, but also a lot of the newer homes have what they call overhead sewers. Now, this gets confusing because a lot of times when I'm representing clients and I'm showing a buyer a home and I say, oh, this has an overhead sewer, many times they don't know what that is. Basically, this is a home that does not have a floor drain in the floor that goes out to the city sewer. Basically what it has a sewer system that's about maybe 2 or 3 feet off the ground and goes out the wall, okay? And then also the drainage goes up towards the ceiling. So in houses like this, if you have an overhead sewer, it's very unlikely that you're going to get any type of flooding through that system because there's no floor drain, okay? So if you, in those types of homes then, if you install a bathroom or a sink or a toilet or anything in the basement, you have to then run that into what they call an ejector pump. That ejector pump then pumps everything up into this overhead sewer, and then it goes out to the city sewer. But again, there's no floor drain to flood your basement. So hopefully, and there's a lot more details too with sump pumps and the difference between ejector pumps. People get confused with these. A sump pump is basically a pit that's dug into your ground, okay? And this is another way that your basement can actually flood that I'm thinking about this. If a sump pump is just a hole that's dug into your ground, and what happens is that when the water level, okay, starts to come up in your soil underneath your home, what happens is the water fills up in this sump pump pit. There's a pump down there, and it pumps the water outside. So this way you don't have, and I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it's like hydrostatic pressure. You don't have hydrostatic pressure underneath your basement floor, which can cause seepage through any cracks or anything that's in your basement. That's different than what an ejector pump is. You're only going to see an ejector pump in homes that have overhead sewers. And because you put a bathroom or a sink in the basement, you need an ejector pump in order to get that water up into the sewer system. Now, some of this might sound kind of confusing, and I'm trying to break this down, but for a lot of the people who are getting sewage backup into your basement and you have an older home, this is what's happening. The city sewers just can't handle the amount of fluid, the amount of water and sewage that's in their sewer system. Now, this is one of the fights that I've always had, is that our sewer system and our homes are designed to flow out into the city sewers. That system works right. But when the city sewers can't handle the amount of water and it backs back into our house, to me, I've always believed that there should be some type of liability with the villages or cities because their sewer system out in the street is not working correctly. And then we have to go and spend the thousands of dollars to install a flood control system out in our front yard. So hopefully this helps. If you are getting sewage backup and it gets costly to remodel and the time to dry out your basement, it's much better if you just invest the money and contact a good qualified licensed and bonded plumber in your area and install a flood control system in your front yard. Believe you me, the cost for that versus the headache and the cost of your basement flooding, the benefits far outweigh the flooding in your basement if you just install a flood control system. So listen, if you have any questions on any of this, reach out to me. All my information will be given at the end of this video. Hopefully this helped to break things down a little bit. But in the meantime, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. And as always, make it a great day.